Hey guys, welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. It's 25th day of February 2023 and it's snowing outside in New Jersey. Um, as you can see, and of course, at the beginning of our show, we always open with a monologue, and it's always sponsored by Coriano Trucking, Summerhill, New York. And, this ties in very closely with, what I'm about to bring up. As you can see, I'm here solo this week, and I'm here solo for a reason. My partner, and more importantly, my little brother, had a medical setback this week, and he's not going to be with us today, and probably not for another few shows, which is it's difficult to talk about, to be quite honest, but something I had to bring up. Um, Steve, had some medical issues, a month ago, or maybe 2 months ago, but we had another setback. But he's being cared for, and he's so disappointed he's not here with us this week. But I wanted to update our listeners and our fans and his friends. In particular, guys like Anthony Francina and Jim Walsh and Mikey O and George Breen. He's pretty loved out there. And, we try to be transparent here on the show. And like I said, it was a difficult week for me, difficult week for my family. My sister Mary Ellen came up from Kentucky and boosted his spirits. So, folks, this is just a setback, and I just wanted to bring it up and thank everybody for their thoughts, their prayers, their wishes. It was just a miraculous, gathering of people that are close to Steve, and I don't know that anybody's closer to Steve than me and our family and our brothers and sister. And but he's going to be okay. He's obviously was a prominent athlete, and he's got that mentality in him. And he's got his son Sean and daughter Emily. That this is a difficult time for them, but he's going to be okay. And I just wanted to make sure I let you guys know, or loyal listeners like Tony and Miriam, and those folks that love Stephen as much as I do. And this was hard for me. I was trying to keep my composure here, but this is not a minor thing. It's a big thing. And he wishes he was here. And the old slogan, "The show must go on," unfortunately, is something that Sports with Mono and Mono, that's what we do. We try to alleviate the disappointments that happen to us in our daily lives, and cover it up with sports and talking about things like that. And I just wanted to give just a big shout out to all of our listeners, and let you know that Steve's going to be okay, and he's going to be back with us soon, right? But the old slogan again is "The show must go on," and we're doing this for him, and I'm sure he's probably listening right now. And Steve, I love you. We love you. Your family loves you. Your friends love you, and you'll be back with us soon. So, thanks again to all of the folks and the Jeremy Bennett's and of the world. Just rallied behind him, and he's going to be. That's carrying him through this difficult time. So, thanks again for all your support, and let's move on, and let's what we do, right? We cover this sports because it's something that we all have a passion for, and Steve and I, this is what we want to do. We want to continue to do this. So, a couple of things. And I never really start off with the NBA, but I'm gonna start off with the NBA for a couple of reasons. You know, the All Star game was last week, and again, you got to ask yourself the question: why are we even bothering with this? All it is watching, the best players in the world just run up and down the court and shoot 3 pointers, and the score was like 185 to whatever it was. Not really necessary, but the NBA is an absolute marketing bonanza, and it just continues. But the opportunities we get to see these guys all play in a meaningless game. It's just like the Pro Bowl in football, which we've talked about. Um, but some other thing I was thinking about, yesterday there was a game, there were 351 points scored in the Kings Clippers game. I mean, so Steve and I have always talked about this. The game is much different than the game used to be. These guys just, they 3-point shots and no defense. And, I guess it's exciting, maybe for the younger kids, but I can't really get excited for the NBA right now because it's such a different game when compared to when Jordan, and I'm going to bring something up about Bill Russell in a little bit, by the way, kind of as our monologue. But with the NBA and Kevin Durant, now he's well rested, and now he's in Phoenix, and they're going to make a run. And you see things like Giannis Antetokounmpo from in Milwaukee. He got hurt again last night. Those are the kind of players I like watching him. I like watching Luka Doncic. I like watching John Moran. I like, the athletes in the game are amazing. But defense was always part of what the NBA used to be. And Steve and I used to watch the Knicks religiously, in the early 70s and the championship years, and it was great. I just can't get that luster, passion going for me in the regular season. And the whole chaos with guys being able to just dictate where and when they want to play is something that, it doesn't seem to be affecting the NBA because they're making just as much money as they did, back then. But it's just crazy. And guys like Russell Westbrook, I don't know, he got traded to the Jazz and then he ends up in the Clippers, and you can play wherever you want. So I keep going back to this point where a contract doesn't seem to matter much, certainly in the NBA. Little more stringent in Major League Baseball because those guys are getting 10-year contracts, which is crazy. It's on itself, but I did want to bring this up. I was going to bring it up as my monologue, but I wanted to bring an update to our audience. There's a documentary on Netflix, and it's crazy when we're talking about the NBA, right? The first couple of names that always pop up, right, are Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and one or the other, maybe Magic Johnson and Larry Bird and those kind of guys. But somebody's always left off the list, and that's Bill Russell. And this documentary on Netflix about Bill Russell is outstanding. And, Steve and I always acknowledge, these productions on ESPN or wherever it may be, Netflix, that these documentaries really give you an insight as to what kind of character these people were. And Bill Russell character was impeccable. And Bill Russell passed away not too long ago. And of course, we mentioned that on the show. But this is a documentary worth watching, what this guy went through and how dominant he was on the court. And then the rivalry with Bill Russell and, him playing with Bob Cousy and moving to Boston and the racial issues that he fought for, but he was a stand-up guy. I mean, I just can't say enough about the guy. I love watching old footage of him and Bob Cousy playing basketball with Red Auerbach as the coach. It was, the old saying about Bill Russell, he's got more rings than fingers. And that's something to be to be said for, but the character of what he did and his stringent efforts to bring racial injustice and so forth to light is, I can't say enough about this guy, and I highly recommend it. It's a two-part documentary on Netflix, but from a basketball fan perspective, from a fan perspective, and from a humanitarian perspective, this guy was great. So watch it. And we'll get into more of the NBA ho-hum as the season goes on, but the playoffs actually are good. The Knicks are winning some games. They're not going to win the championship, but I will give this kid, John Randall, some credit. He's actually playing outstanding after an abysmal year last year, and with the attitude and everything. But he seems to be focused on basketball, so we'll keep watching it, and we'll keep updating you. So I want to touch base. Let's move right on to the NFL, right? And I think Aaron Rodgers came out of his darkness period. I don't know, haven't heard him speak. Wasn't on McAfee, right? Whatever. But there are two quarterbacks in the NFL. Obviously, I guess you would call them the most coveted. With Aaron Rodgers being one of them. Seems like his days for me are numbered in Green Bay, and he's pretty much going to be able to dictate where he wants to go, whether that's New York, whether that's Las Vegas, still remains to be seen. But I look at this and the Jets, wined and dined Derek Carr last week. He's the other, marquee guy, if you will. So if Aaron Rodgers decides he wants to go play for the Jets, then he's going to play for the Jets. Does that make them an instant Super Bowl contender like New York fans are saying? I just don't see it that way. Certainly, if Derek Carr is the guy that they ultimately sign, because Rodgers wants to go somewhere else, I don't see him bringing a championship to New York. It could be the old Favre and the recycling guys. And, if neither one of them decides they want to play in New York, then what's the alternative, right? The Andy Daltons, the Baker Mayfields, the B players, right? But I think the Jets are, I know they're a talented team. They got, Garrett Wilson, and they got a lot of good offensive players. I just don't see them being a quarterback away yet. And I don't see that because I just don't have much confidence in Robert Saleh, to lead this. And you still have the controversy about losing LaFleur, as the OC, and bringing in Nathaniel Hackett. And that's why I keep saying that the Aaron Rodgers thing probably makes sense. And maybe this has already been worked out. We don't know. But he's in his dark room for 4 days, and who knows what's going to come of that. So those are but like I said, Derek Carr has been in this league for 9 years, and a lot of people say, well, the Raiders didn't have enough talent around them. They went out and they got Devontae Adams, and they do have a lot of talent, and they spent money. But he hasn't been there, so I don't see him being, the guy that the Jets could rely on to tutor Zach Wilson, whether or not he's even going to be on the team next year, or Mike White, whatever the case may be. But, those are the two marquee names out there. And it's just, again, and now the whole situation with the Giants. And I'm an absolute Giants fan, as you guys know, and I've been a big supporter of Daniel Jones, and he fires his agent and whatever, and now he's looking for 40 some odd $million a year. And I've already brought this up time and time again that the $40 million seems to be the mark, even higher, right? For guys like Mahomes and for Rodgers, these guys are making incredible money. I like Daniel Jones. I like him a lot, but I'm not going to pay him $45 million. So I don't know what his thinking is. I hope he stays with the Giants and says, we talk about numbers. Okay, so this is, I'll give him 30 million. And people go, 30 million, that's a lot of money. Yeah, but it's not a lot of money compared to what the Rodgers and what the Joe Burrows are going to make and the Justin Herberts are going to make. So, the NFL season is over. The Chiefs are the champions, and Patrick Mahomes solidifies himself going forward as just one of the greatest of all time, even at this early stage of his career. So, Daniel Jones, the Giants offer you $30 million, take it. Otherwise, we'll franchise you, and he's going to make 32 million there. But there's gonna be a resentment there, and I don't know how that pans out long term. I think he wants to stay with the Giants. I think he likes Brian Daboll like I do. So let's see how that all pans out and shakes out. But what's on tap is the NFL draft, and we'll see mock drafts done left and right for the next 6 weeks. But I did want to bring an update to our guest that we had, Luke Whippler. There was a nice mock draft or something sponsored by the NFL. It wasn't a McShay, it wasn't a Mel Kiper type thing. But they had him projected as possibly a first round draft pick of the Denver Broncos, right? And the Denver Broncos situation is kind of intriguing, right? Big story came out this week about Russell Wilson and the fact that he tried to have Pete Carroll and the GM fired, which I find impossible to believe. I always assimilate the Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll just like Terry Bradshaw and Chuck Noll. If it wasn't for Chuck Noll, Terry Bradshaw, we wouldn't even be mentioning his name. And that's why I was so disappointed when Chuck Noll passed away. All of the Steelers went except Terry Bradshaw. And you can't see, it's a very similar thing. If Pete Carroll, and I'm not a big Pete Carroll fan, but, Russell Wilson owes everything to Pete Carroll. I mean, he gave him that starting job, and he ultimately won a Super Bowl with him. So I'm not buying into the story that he tried to have Pete Carroll fired and replaced with Sean Payton. But this is the coaching carousel and the influence players now have in the formulation of the teams that they're on. So now you have Russell Wilson playing for Sean Payton in Denver. Interesting thing. And Sean Payton is an all business guy, but he knew that he was going there with Russell Wilson. So he's going in with the theory that Russell Wilson is my guy. And a lot of people are writing Russell Wilson off as, he's lost that thing. He's still a young man. I'm not going to say Russell Wilson can't be more than 31 years old. So let's see how that pans out, right? So, but that was an interesting story, and I just don't believe that Russell Wilson is that kind of guy. I think he's a stand-up character type player, and I find that hard to believe. But that's the NFL, and the NFL it's its own soap opera, which we know, and we'll see how that goes, right? So let's move on real quick to the NHL, right? We got some trade deadlines coming up. Rangers made a couple of moves, getting Tarasenko from the Blues, and they get Tyler Mott back. They literally traded for him around the same time last year for the playoff run that could help that team. But the key with the New York Rangers right now is, Igor Shesterkin won the Vezina Trophy last year as the MVP. Just had an unbelievable year. He's not having that kind of a year this year. Kreider's not scoring on the pace he was last year. But the Rangers have a lot of things going, and they're in the right direction. And as Steve has always pointed out, and he's a little biased because Chris Drury was a Boston University guy, Little League World Story, but he's done everything to put the Rangers in a good position. And they're going to have to go up against Boston Bruins, who are having just an unprecedented season. talent-wise. They're loaded, and but there was a couple other big trades. Toronto Maple Leafs, get Ryan O'Reilly from the Blues. And there's, Toronto Maple Leafs, the long historic, one of the original six teams, just have had a horrible run in the playoffs over the past 30, 40 years. So, maybe this is something, that can get them back in, but there's nothing like the second half. And a lot of people say, we brought this up because everyone goes, "Oh, I miss football," right? We had another week and no more football for another 6 months unless you watch that other silly stuff, the XFL, whatever that is, USFL, unwatchable. They said, "So what are we going to fill our time with?" And they said, "Of course, it's hockey." And the second half of hockey, and then playoff hockey. It goes all the way till June. That's why you always say it's the toughest trophy to win in sports. So we'll see about that. But there's a lot of great talent in the NHL. A couple of things, Connor McDavid is like I just remember him coming into this league. He was kind of the next Sidney Crosby, the Wayne Gretzky's, the guys that are can't miss guys, and he's been a can't miss guy, and he's absolutely lived up to all those expectations. Got his 800th point in I think it's only his 5th year. So I mean, this guy's on a rampage, and he plays with Leon Draisaitl, who maybe a lot of hockey people don't even know who he is. He got his 700th point already. I mean, these guys. It's great to see the Edmonton Oilers with the long history and the Stanley Cups with the Messies and Messiers and the Gretzky's. It's great to see that back on, and you can fill your time with that, right? And of course, what are we getting into as we rapidly approach March? We're getting into the conference tournaments of college basketball, and I'm going to touch base on that in a little bit as well from a season-long perspective, but March Madness is coming up. So, these are meaningful games, and it's been an unprecedented season in college basketball where every team that becomes number one seems to get knocked off the very next game. So it's a wide open thing. Yes, we're not seeing the North Carolinas, the Dukes as the top 2 or 3 teams in this country. You got Alabama, you got Purdue, you got Arizona, Kansas is on a roll. So college basketball, there is enough to fill our calendars with the season being over in the NFL. And what else is going on, right? Is obviously spring training, right? So all of the big contracts have been signed and all the trading's been done. It's like the Yankees stood pat, and if you live in the New York area, you could pretty much say that every Met fan believes this is the year that they're going to make a run. In the Steve Cohen era, you got Scherzer, you got Verlander, you got a great nucleus. But I don't see them they haven't made that many improvements to me to think that they can actually still compete and beat the Atlanta Braves. So we'll see about that. But, they're very optimistic. And in the Bronx, right, we solidified the deal for Aaron Judge, making a lot of money, but they didn't make a lot of moves on this team. You still got Donaldson at third, who's a great fielder, but you can't have another year when he's hitting 220. And Giancarlo Stanton can't hit 210, 220. Aaron Hicks can't hit 210, maybe. I mean, I think the Yankees didn't make a lot of improvements. And, we can't expect Aaron Judge to hit 62 home runs every year. So, right now it's a month of watching preseason, exhibition games and watching these guys exercise for a month. But spring training's only a month away, and we talked about this with all the rule changes going on and the things that are going to be happening with the bigger bases. It's kind of crazy. I think this pitch clock thing is going to be a major factor in the outcome of Major League Baseball games. I really do. I just can't see You know, it's shortening the game. I think the bigger bases are going to lengthen the games as more guys are going to be safe on stolen bases and close plays. So we'll see about that. But Major League Baseball is only a month away. But I did want to bring up what Major League Baseball is a month away, but college baseball is upon us. And of course, I wanted to bring it up because I'm going to have Brendan on the show, who's the pitching coach for Rutgers. They're down playing in South Carolina, and I was talking to, Brendan's dad and my brother Ken. They're playing in a team called Campbell down there. And these guys, they just live and breathe baseball. These are major college programs. And Rutgers went 1-2 in their opening series down there, and it was great. So college baseball is very, very exciting, and Rutgers baseball, is right down the road from us. So, if you're out and about, and we've talked about it, if you don't want to spend, $50 to park your car, and go to a Yankee game and pay $20 for a beer, go to a college baseball game. And very excited for the year. Rutgers had a great year, most wins in school history, led the nation in ERA and pitching, and they didn't make, the College World Series tournament, which was kind of a big disappointment. But they're back, and it's going to be an exciting year for them. And I think they're going to be playing at some point our producer Rob Seton Hall Pirates. So think about going to that. And I've also mentioned minor league baseball, and those kind of things are, this is. These are athletes that could ultimately be playing in pinstripes for the Yankees, and it's a good place to go, good thing to do, and I'm wishing all my best to my nephew Brendan and Coach Steve Owens, the manager and head coach of the Rutgers program. They're trending in the right direction, and it's good for New Jersey. So they're down there, they're nice and warm. It's snowing here, so I don't know. We sometimes some of the games start in late February and early March in New Jersey, and we haven't had much snow, so we're going to see how that affects the schedule. But I'm going to look forward to having Brendan on and give us kind of an overview of the Rutgers program and the upcoming season. Couple other things when we look at the calendar and we think it's February is going to be in the rearview mirror in a few days. So we got March, and then right after that, right, first weekend in April, the Masters, and it's going to be an interesting event this year because they are allowing the live golfers to be playing in the Masters. So it's almost like it's got this Ryder Cup feel for me, right? The US versus Europe and how intense that gets. And, this is going to be an opportunity for if one of the live guys that left, like the Koepkas or the Dustin Johnsons, wins the Masters, how does that reflect on the PGA Tour and the loyal stance that the Rory McIlroys and John Rahms and those guys have played. It always starts to feel like spring when you're thinking about the Masters coming up, and it's coming up soon, and that's good news. I'm not going to be watching any of this live golf, and and people say, yeah, but they're still the best players in the world. I say, okay, I'm a traditionalist. Sorry, but that's how I feel. So that's going to be an interesting situation at Augusta in the first weekend in April, and and that kind of kicks it off. And they play a lot of tournaments up and down, and there's Tiger Woods. Can he possibly even pull off something as miraculous? It seems unlikely, but you can never put something from far from this guy's mind if he sets his mind to it. But it will be interesting. He will be playing at Augusta, and he'll be playing with his, with McIlroy and Thomas and and the guys that stayed loyal on the PGA Tour against the LIV guys. I needed to bring something up because one of our listeners, Michael Garvey, actually brought up last week after the show that we forgot to mention the Daytona 500. And I'm going to bring it up now because it was quite a finish, actually. You know, a lap finished under a caution flag because of an accident. But Ricky Stenhouse Jr. wins. And we bring this up because, like I said, Steve and I, we were sports guys. We watched the Indy 500 and we watched the Daytona 500. Not so much anymore, but back in the day, and we remember, I think it was 2001, Dale Earnhardt. We watched this on live television. The face of NASCAR at the time, and that was a tragic ending. But I wanted to bring it up, Mike, and thanks for mentioning it. It is a sport, it's not pickleball, but it's pretty good, I guess. I don't know. But listen, I also wanted to give a shout out just to, as I mentioned before, with Steve being, just, kind of just recovering, but the staff and in particular, some of the people that have been caring for him. And one of them was a gentleman named Alvin De Serva, and he's one of the nurses there. He's Filipino, and he brought something up. We had cards. I'm sure he's listening today. And Alvin, thank you, and the Dominiques and the Cheryls and the Elises that have been caring for Steve. Thank you very much. But there was an interesting thing because his brother, Alvin's brother, is a magician. And he showed me some videos, and I've always been a big magic guy. I just can't figure it out, and it's amazing to see. But he was on like Asia's Got Talent, the old America's Got Talent version. But his name was Drac. I got to try to get this right here. Seagam, and if you look closely, that is magic card spelled backwards. So I wanted to bring that up, and you could check him out on YouTube. Just phenomenal. If you're into magic, and but Alvin's into sports and his brother's into sports, but I wanted to give a shout out to them about his magic show. And again, thank the staff at St. Joe's University Hospital in Patterson for taking care of my little brother. Couple other things, so we'll move on to our random points of interest, right? And of course, that's sponsored by Coriano Trucking and Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut, and a couple of things. Random point, I saw this story that Rex Ryan interviewed for the defensive coordinator job in Denver, and I just couldn't help but laugh that was even brought up in the media, that was a possibility, a remote possibility, that Sean Payton would take that job and have somebody like this guy on his staff trying to take all the spotlight and make the focus on him. I thought it was an absolute joke that I had to laugh, and I had to bring it up because from a random point of interest, it was impossible for me to think that was even remotely legitimate for a professional like Sean Payton and kind of a clown like Rex Ryan. But I wanted to bring that up. And here's something else, folks. I did bring this up just a little while ago, and I know it's gaining in popularity, is pickleball. Pickleball is on ESPN. And I just said to myself, I was laughing, people can watch this. It's great for the people that play it. They enjoy it. It's fun, and it's becoming extremely popular. But I can't watch it for 30 seconds. I mean, I think I'm going to stick with tennis and watch, Djokovic and Nadal play. I just can't. And right now, we don't know who the Nadal and Federer and Djokovic is of pickleball yet. But if you got nothing else to do on the planet, then I guess that's something you could watch. But uh, another note from we talked about college football and a lot of coaches moving around, and um, we Tommy Rees from Notre Dame took the job at Alabama, and they did promote Gerard Parker to offensive coordinator, and this is the Notre Dame roadmap here. They're bringing in these young guys, and like I said, they gave Marcus Freeman the opportunity, and I thought he had a pretty successful uh, freshman year as coach of Notre Dame. So good luck to him, and good luck to Tommy Rees. But I just wanted to bring that up, that Notre Dame is they're keeping these guys that have been loyal to the program to be the foundation of the next, hopefully, top flight Notre Dame team that compete with the Clemsons, the Alabamas, and the Ohio States and basketball and football. Was an interesting story, and it's kind of a disturbing story. This whole I know a lot of people have been wondering. I don't know how much information we have, how much is this accurate, but this goes to the story of do athletes get treated differently than the average Joe? And this is the Brandon Miller story, right? Who's just this outstanding freshman basketball player at Alabama, who's the number one team for 10 minutes last week. Very disturbing story that he could or could not have been involved in this situation with a loaded gun and him giving it to somebody and possibly aiding in um, the shooting that a person died. And right now, it looks as though he hasn't been charged. Obviously, the investigation is still underway and so forth. But it begs the question about, if you look at some of the preliminary facts that came out, you say, well, what is a freshman basketball player for the number one team in the country doing with a loaded gun? And why is he giving it to somebody else? And ultimately, that weapon was used in the killing of a citizen. I don't know the backstory of it, but it does have a very foul aroma of some sort of protection. And you could see Nate Oates and the coach of Alabama coming out and almost defending the situation. And I'm not passing judgment. I don't think we have enough evidence right now to know what sort of involvement, but you wonder, is if it was anybody else, would they still be playing basketball? And this isn't going to be a good situation for the Alabama team, coming down the stretch in the second half and ultimately, the NCAA tournament. But it's a situation that maybe we should read up on it. I just don't know that all the facts are out. But I'm just saying, maybe, there needs to be a situation where we say, hold on, you're involved in this situation somehow. There's some evidence to support that. Maybe you can't be playing basketball right now. I don't know the right answer, but it's a story that I just wanted to bring up. And another was crazy situation. The former NFL offensive lineman, played mostly for the Colts, uh, Joe Stasniak, and the situation where his son and his boyfriend and he choked the guy. I don't know the backstory of it, but this is a situation where this is another NFL player that makes the news for something other than like what Joe Klecko did, make the news because you're a Hall of Famer. This off the field situation with guys like this, again, don't know all the backstory of this, but this is a guy that we used to watch on Sundays. He was a good football player, and now he's involved in a situation where potentially harming somebody, and it doesn't seem to end. It really doesn't. But I just like I said, I wanted to bring these points up, and I know Rob is behind our curtain here. Rob, you got anything you want to chime in on for, you want to do a plug for Seton Hall, something like that? I know Rob's up in the Catskills, right, Rob? You're up in the Catskills this weekend?
Yep, up here in the snowy Catskills. I don't know. I think like I mentioned before, I think it's just a quiet time of sports. We're waiting for March
There's
Madness.
still enough to fill the void, though, right?
Eh, I mean, yeah, if you're into an NBA team, I guess. I know you guys are more into hockey than I am. It's the lull before March Madness, and we do get some baseball starting today a little bit. You get to watch a little pitchers and catchers and some little
Yeah,
grapefruit league, whatever you want to call it. So, no, not much today. Very
yeah.
quiet.
Okay, good. Well, Rob, we'll move on to our notable passings for this week. And from the world of entertainment, actually, well-known guy. I don't know if you knew Richard Belzer passed away.
Yep, I saw
At
that.
the age of 78. And I know you like the movie Scarface. I think he was actually had a cameo in Scarface, but he was a pretty successful comedian. Um, it was always, something Bells, like, the funny Bells, the actor Bells. But he was on, obviously, he was on that Law and Order show for years. 78 years old, but he had a pretty good, successful career. Do you know who he is?
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
sure do. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, he passed away, and there was another guy from the world of sports, Red McCombs. And this is where I wish Steve was with us, because we look at Red McCombs, and he used to own the Vikings. He owned the San Antonio Spurs. Real character type guy. Made a $1 billion doing uh, communications and things like that. But he was a very flamboyant figure and a good owner. And he was 95 years old, and you know he definitely made a name for himself in both the NBA and the NFL, and wanted to mention that for sure. But that was good, and it was a good short week for our notable passings. We had a bunch last week, which
Oh wow.
we hate to bring that up, but it's part of what we do. But again, yeah, you're right, Rob. So let's settle in, and again, before we sign off, I wanted to thank you, for producing the show week after week. You're, outstanding and consistent, and it means a lot to us. And I feel a little void here, sitting here by myself without the other big-headed Monahan sitting next to me. But he's going to be back with us soon, and it's important for us to make sure that we're fully transparent. And again, send us an email at sportswithmono@gmail.com, because we do the show because we love it, and we're not a show without our listeners and our producer. And I just wanted to give a shout out to everybody for their well wishes for Steve, and he'll be back with us soon. And Rob, what do you got going? You got some games this weekend?
Yeah, about one more night here at the resort DJing, and then head back home. And St. Mary's lost last night, so looks like the high school basketball is done for the season. Get ready for a little high school baseball in a few weeks.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I haven't. You know what? That's a good point that you brought up, because I mentioned the Rutgers and the college baseball and spring training, but high school baseball is coming right around the corner too. And um, how it is, and that's going to be enough shows, and it's a good alternative if you're
Yeah, I
into
gotta see.
baseball and you don't want to spend $1,000.
Yeah, I got to see the schedule come up. I'm sure we're playing St. Joe's again this year, so we'll see. I'll let you know when. And we
Okay.
played them last year on my birthday,
All
so
right. Well, we'll have to do that game together. Okay.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Again, thanks for joining us, and you guys have a good week. Rob, enjoy your weekend up in the Catskills, and we'll see you guys back here next week, same time.
And you enjoy Elvis Costello tonight.